Welcome, everybody. My name's Christian Harris, and I am the host of the Safety and Risk Success podcast. I partner up with HSE People, who are running this conference, and one of the things that we do together is I help them do some interviews like this. So I'm delighted today to be interviewing Gwen about his business and the role that they're playing in the world of sustainability. Gwen, thanks for joining me. Would you like to start by just giving a quick intro to yourself and the business?
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here and tell you a little bit more about myself and Peltate. So I'm Gwen, co-founder and CCO of Peltate. So it's a bit of a fancy title for such an early startup. I'm originally from France, but I've spent my whole career abroad. So I worked in Switzerland, Singapore, Malaysia, and I've been back here for the last 2 years. My background is in cultural and digital transformation, so that's where I spent most of my career. And late 2020, I decided to left corporate as I wanted to test my limits with starting my own business and pursue a project with purpose. So that's actually when I met Julian early 2021, and we kicked off Peltate. So Peltate, so the idea goes back from 2015 when Julian went working for a microfinance institution in Kyrgyzstan and Georgia. And he found out that when they were providing loans, they were assessing the loan takers based on non-financial indicators. And through this, they were able to get their money back about 95% of the time. So with EU regulations coming in, he thought that was an opportunity to bring those non-financial indicators or information at a higher level, as we're looking for companies to now, take environmental, social, and governance topics, look at it a bit more prominently in their business decision making. So that's essentially where Peltate came from. So what we're doing is that we want to help companies solve three main problems. The first one is being able to collect and manage this sustainability data in one place in the most effective way possible. So it's often spread across an organization and often managed through Excel. So we want to help save time in the data collection. Then we want to, once the data is collected, we want to automate reporting. So be it regulatory, voluntary reporting, or client disclosures. And once this is done, the third step is more towards making it easier for companies to take sustainable business decisions and improve by connecting to a marketplace where you would find sustainability specialized applications such as CO2 calculators, as well as various service providers that can advise companies about the best way to advance their sustainability journey.
Sounds great. And you've got a virtual booth here at the conference so people can come and talk to you and learn in a bit more detail about what you do there as well, right?
Absolutely. So we'll be there for the whole day. And we're really happy to take on any questions and share more information than what will be disclosed in this interview.
Perfect. So thinking about sustainability then, obviously ESG is a massive topic, hence the conference taking place. Was it sort of your previous career in corporate that has kind of led you to this path of working in the field of sustainability? In other words, you've seen the trend of this becoming increasingly important over time?
Yeah, it is something that I've seen. Actually, that's what got me into my career in financial services in the first place. When back in 2012, I was at a conference and someone talked sustainability for the first time. I was a young graduate and I really loved the topic. And at the time, it was applied to the industry of reinsurance, and they were saying so how they make the world more resilient by looking into all these climate risk, natural catastrophes, and so on. So they looked at it from the environmental perspective, and that's been a thread, in my mind. A bit less in my career, unfortunately, and so it came back in 2021 when the topic became more prominent, and I started to see more companies looking into it, and that's really when I decided to start looking into sustainability, and from a perspective that we need to do the right thing. Sustainability is about companies stepping up, deciding, okay, we need to do right by the planet. And that is true. But for us, what we think, sustainability is a topic that has been around forever. It's all about making sure that your business, sustains and thrive. And nowadays, you need to look into this kind of ESG aspects in order to make sure that you're going to survive the next 10, 50, 100 years. I think the pandemic, the war in Ukraine or climate change is showing, how the lack of resilience of certain organizations, and looking at these dimensions will help them thrive in the years to come.
Yeah. An interesting point you made about the loan decision making, and with your background in insurance, and from what I can see from my perspective of companies that my business serves, increasingly people are asking these types of sustainability questions as part of tenders and supplier onboardings and things like that. So I do think that it's becoming a lot more kind of mainstream. And I wonder actually whether, just as the loans would be repaid at a higher rate if people ticked those boxes, whether actually there's a move even in insurance, for example, to be looking to cover companies that can tick some of these extra boxes as well. I don't know if you've got any insights on that from your perspective.
It's actually a very good question. I do have a few insights. So we're discussing with a few insurance companies in these regards. I think that there's a growing wisdom in the space that companies that run an effective and holistic sustainability strategy that are really looking into this topic are less likely to trigger claims. So they are better clients from an insurance perspective. So it's an opportunity for them as well to develop new products, to incentivize these companies to progress. And that is a topic that we're discussing with them. It's still early on with some of those companies. I guess that one of the problems is the lack of data, consistent data, because in order to be able to underwrite a risk, you need to have enough information to make sure that you can assess what is good, what is less good. And so that's actually the conversation we have with some of them to help them get this data in an easy way and provide incentives to their clients as well to progress on this sustainability journey.
Yeah. And the other positive side of this is in the world we live in, and the focus on social justice and kind of these causes that people are increasingly taking up. It strikes me that a business that is forging the way when it comes to ESG is going to be much more successful at attracting and retaining staff, attracting and retaining customers, and therefore it just makes good business sense as well.
Absolutely. I think nowadays it is just simple best business practices. I mean, you're going to attract more talents. I think a lot of younger people are looking into this. They want to look into companies that are taking this seriously. Clients now are asking more and more for disclosures, which are quite limited sometimes, but I think it's going to start going a little deeper and deeper once EU regulations are going to come. Certain companies will say, look, I know that you're providing this data to regulators, so why don't you provide it to me? Up to a point where if you don't have certain standards with regard to sustainability in your organization, certain companies will refuse to work with you, which is making this a very critical business aspect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've looked at it from from the perspective of the benefits, a few of the benefits anyway. I'm sure there's more, but we could cover. But what would be some of the areas that you see where kind of people are struggling then to enact this? So I think it's probably fair to say that most companies get it as such. That we understand that there's an important reason to be pushing this agenda. But where do you find people are struggling? Is it just that it's such a big topic they don't know where to start, or are there specific areas where you find that organizations are sort of not quite yet on top of things?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a very good question. What we've noticed over hundreds of conversations is that a lot of companies don't necessarily know where to start.
Mm.
It is a very broad topic. It can sometimes be intimidating. I mean, you're talking about CO2 emissions. Most companies, don't have a baseline. They don't know where to start getting the data. They don't know what data to even get. They don't know how to calculate. So they're very much dependent on third parties to help them on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
So because they don't really know where to start, and the most prominent topic is carbon emissions, we see that a lot of companies are starting there. So calculating their carbon footprint together with oftentimes consulting firms.
Yeah.
That's also why it has become, we've always said we want to cover all ESG because that covers the whole story. But that's also why we've made carbon emission calculation a prerequisite on our platform
Mm-hmm.
to help companies with this. And I think the second step is about getting the data, because while they're trying to figure out where to start, you have their clients, you have various stakeholders that are coming to them and asking them to, what are you doing? What are you putting in place? Do you have numbers to share with us? And so they're being attacked from every possible direction, and they need to structure their approach.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's spot on. I mean, in my world, day to day, I deal with slip and fall risks. So it's a big risk, but it's on a different sort of level of macro global influence than what you guys are dealing with. But biggest cause of accident, injury, and claim. And where we find most of the problems is that people just don't have any data, so they're just kind of making assumptions all the time. So I think gathering data is really really critical. Um, so how do you kind of make this accessible then? Because I guess that if you're a massive business, you've got huge amounts of data, but you probably you might have kind of a team in place, or you're thinking about this already. Whereas if you're a very small business, you probably haven't even really given it much thought unless it's really part of your mission and it's guiding your business to start with. So how does that work in terms of where do you feel like is this something for every company of every size, or is this something where you need to be of a certain scale before you can really do this properly?
Yeah. So I think it's so our solution is probably not for every size. I think I mean different companies will need a different solution. So for example, when we think about the largest companies of this world, these ones will probably go with players like SAP, Salesforce, because they'll need something so tailored to their business,
Hmm.
so specific that it will cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And standard solutions like a bit more standard solutions like ours will be difficult to implement. Then very small companies could benefit from a platform like ours to better understand what information they need to collect to know what they're doing essentially. But our sweet spot is, we like to think that companies with, a rather small sustainability team, or maybe, even one person in charge of sustainability team. What I even like to say is even a team of, quality team, health and safety, that are not necessarily, historically have been collaborating closely together,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be brought together because now they have a common topic
Yeah.
to work on.
Yeah.
So these are the companies we want to work with,
Mm-hmm.
usually between 2,500, I mean, between 500 to 5,000, 2,500 employees. These are the good companies we work with.
Yeah.
But generally, it's a question of there needs to be coordination,
Mm-hmm.
and there's limited resources. And that's when our kind of solution can really help optimize the time they spend collecting the data for various topics. For example, quality teams and health and safety, maybe historically they've worked on ISO certifications.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of this information can be reused for sustainability disclosures to clients. That maybe some of their client managers are being asked to provide. And it's that whole coordination between procurement, quality, health and safety, clients that we're trying to do to manage within our solution.
Yeah. That makes sense. So how does technology help then? I mean, in a broad sense, and then perhaps niching down into what you guys are doing. How can technology help companies to manage their sustainability data and reporting? I guess is a broad question.
Hmm. So as a first step, I think it's in gaining efficiency. Collecting data and reporting generally are not the most value-adding activities there is. So you really want to optimize the time you're going to spend on that. And when you look at, for example, finance teams that have been doing that for dozens of years, probably started from pieces of paper, and progressively technology has brought more automation, even though we're still spending a lot of time on it. But that's really what I think technology can help, is in standardizing and helping gain efficiency on data collection and reporting automation. Then there's also a lot of other kinds of technologies unrelated to ours that can help get data when there was none before. So for example, on soil quality, on water consumption, on biodiversity and these kind of things. As a second step, I think that and you mentioned it at the beginning of the interview, is the topic of sustainability is broad and large. And even if you're a head of sustainability with 10 years of experience, you don't know everything. You don't have an expertise across the spectrum. So what technology can help is to gain insights that you don't necessarily have through the data that you collect, that can help you then take decisions, informed decisions.
Yeah. I often use the analogy in my world, and it applies as an analogy to what you just said there. Speaking to a health and safety manager or a health and safety director, they've got a very broad remit of things they need to know about. And if your knowledge has to be a mile wide, it can only ever be an inch deep. And then what you need is some help in certain areas, which is an inch wide and a mile deep. And that's kind of exactly what you've said, but in your world instead.
No, exactly. It's very well put, because we're essentially asking companies to transform their business. So you can have this understanding of the business, but you're going to be asked to understand all of this in order to actually transform the way it needs to be done. So it's too much knowledge that for one or two people, right?
Yeah, definitely. Could you share a couple of sort of client successes? So maybe kind of talk us through the story, the journey of kind of where they were, then how you helped them, and then some of the outcomes that they've managed to achieve with your sort of platform.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's one example I really like to use, because it's we work directly with a quality team. So when we got in contact with them, there was still a quality team that is now developing to look into more the sustainability topic. So it's a Swiss company, a large wine producer.
That sounds like my kind of business.
Yeah, it's my kind of business too. It's been very insightful to work with them, actually. And so we're still working with them. So their problematic was they have over 40 sites around the world, so over 40 vineyards. And they required to collect data to better understand what is being done in various countries, in various vineyards. Among their requirements, and that varies from companies to companies, but things that were important to them is to have several languages.
Yeah.
Because, for example, in their Italian branch, in the vineyards, the people that will be collecting the data, submitting the data, don't necessarily speak English.
Yeah.
So they need several languages in order to get this information. We also need to have an audit track, because if they just send Excel files and there's information entered in there, but there's no proof of data, that it's not been following, a good operational process, then they might involuntarily greenwash. So that's a term that is happening now, is that if you don't follow a certain process, then it's not, you cannot really prove that what you're saying is true. So audit track, explanation for the different people in the vineyards to understand what is required from them, and then just a simple UX, so that people don't need to be digital native to use our platform. So how we started our collaboration is with a proof of concept, where we went into a deep dive on what are their sustainability objectives, what is it that they want to do. From there, we started to identify needs with regard to timeline, data, what systems do we need to connect to, and what are the stakeholders that we would need to involve, because they not only want to get that data internally, but they also want to start involving their suppliers. So we've run that proof of concept. The outcome was pretty successful. We're able to really pinpoint what it is that they need at different times during the year. So we're planning to release to our MVP by August this year, which will help them already start collecting that data across some of their vineyards and start reporting, as well as calculate the CO2 emissions. And based on that discussion, we prioritized the development roadmap. We agreed, service level, and so we also discussed that, because they are one of our early clients, the possibility to get some discounts and get the priority on their development needs. So that's really that's where we were. Now, like, I think I'll be able to say more once we've launched our platform. But so far, the collaboration has been very successful together with them.
Fantastic. So looking to the future then, and going back out to more of a macro level, how do you see this kind of sustainability trend continuing over the next, say, 5 to 10 years? And therefore, what does that mean to the future of Peltate as well?
So I think the overall approach towards sustainability is going to professionalize over the next few years. So right now, it's still, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of noise, little standardization across the board. But what we see is, from the regulations, from standards perspective, there is an effort to bring everything together to have comparable information across the board. So that will continue like this. When it comes to our solution, what we think is that the regulations that are coming in the UK, in the EU, and everywhere else in the world will push companies to have a more structured approach to sustainability and more holistic. So that would be extremely positive. And we also see quite a few for the next 5 to 10 years, quite a few innovations. I mean, there's we're in the startup space, so we see a lot of really cool innovations coming through. I mean, I can give you a couple of examples. There's one company that is called Eco Robotics that is based in Switzerland, and what they do is that they want to reduce the herbicide consumption of farmers by 95%. The way they're doing this is that they are creating they are trying to replace the process that is used today to spray herbicides across fields. So right now it's sprayed everywhere, but they have developed a system that can, with a camera, can identify the bad herbs from the good herbs, and just spray pesticide in a targeted fashion, which makes the crops more healthy and reduce drastically the amount of herbicide that is being used. And so you have this kind of technology coming out. There's also companies that are capturing CO2 emissions and pumping it into beton. So I was talking to a construction company just a few days ago that was telling me that they're running a pilot together with that company, which is called Neustark. And there's plenty of other really cool innovations that are coming on the market, that are I'm sure gonna get more funding over the next few years and going to be able to scale. But we're still early, and I'm really hopeful that in 5 to 10 years there'll be a lot more commitments from governments and from companies, and a lot more innovations that are going to be able to change a lot of things.
And what's your vision for your business over the next 10 years? Is it sort of Are you going to be measuring that on sort of impacts that you're making, on sort of carbon emissions saved, or sort of just revenues, or how are you, what's your big goal, and how do you see yourselves getting there?
Yeah, so I mean, our big goal is not only to be, a company that provides a reporting solution or provide a solution that helps collecting the data, but we want to be the getaway platform for the sustainability ecosystem, and that means that in over, let's say, 10 years, we want companies to be able to better understand, get much more insights from the data they collect through benefiting from innovations from all around the world through our platform. We want companies to be able to say, look, I see that I'm, compared to other companies in my industry, based on this benchmark provided by Peltate, I see that I'm underperforming with water. I don't necessarily have the expertise. I'm gonna go on the marketplace of Peltate and find someone that can help us manage this. So we really want to be a platform that helps not only sustainability innovation, but companies to use them in a more effective way, and really change the way they run their business at scale.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So I've got two more questions for you, Gwen. The first is, well, I'll tell you. The second is, let's go through the details of visiting the booth, but also if anybody happens to see this for some reason, not during the day, how can they get in touch with you? But before we get on to that, is there anything that that I haven't asked you, because we've had a short, snappy half an hour. This is a massive topic. Are there any key points that we haven't yet been able to bring out in the conversation, and if so, the floor is yours to get those out there.
Yeah, I mean, if there is anything, is this year is a very important year for us to learn as much as possible from various companies, because most of them are just starting on this journey. So if there's any companies that also want to exchange, or that are curious to explore potential collaboration, we're really open to have a few more companies to work with. We purposely will not seek for too many clients in the first year, because we want to really take the time to understand them. That's the best way we can help than a majority of them. So I think, if anything, is if you want to explore something, or if you just want an exchange and have a chat, we've talked to a lot of people. So what I like to say is we can always provide some advice and help.
Okay, so anybody that's got any even passing interest should certainly come along and say hello to you at the booth today. And over and above that, if this happens to be seen by people on a replay when the booth no longer is there, because it's a virtual booth just there for today, what would be the best ways of people getting in contact with you?
I mean, I would always suggest two things. So first is, you can send me a LinkedIn request. Don't hesitate. So my name is, I think, is shown here. Lucky you. I'm the only one with that name out there, so I'll be pretty easy to find.
That is lucky. Yeah, that is lucky. I whenever somebody Googles my name, there's an American football player called Christian Harris, and so he typically comes up as number one. So I have to say to people, if you're going to Google me, Google Christian Harris safety or something like that. Then I come up.
Well, I mean, that's pretty good. Safety is your last name. That's nice, right? But yeah, no. So LinkedIn, I'll be easy to find, and otherwise, take my name, put my first name and last name, put a dot in between, and then at peltate.com, and don't hesitate to shoot an email. I'll be happy to chat with you.
Perfect. All right, Gwen. Well, look, thank you very much for that. Some great insights, and do go and chat with Gwen today at his virtual stall, and really appreciate it. Hope the conference goes well for you, and speak to you soon.
Thanks, Christian. Have a great day.